high and heavy weapons.
Hello everyone and welcome to Death Battle Discussion. This is episode 6 and today we have Heavy versus Maugu, the two giants among men that love weapons, being loud and unapologetically coming in unannounced. Anyways, these two are big icons in team-based FPS games and today their big bodies and egos cross over to clash. If you're someone that knows TF2, watched a Gmod animation, or seen something Valve or Steam related, you very likely know who this guy is. The Heavy from TF2, aka Misha, is a man that needs no introduction. Heavy is the face of TF2 and a freak of nature that fears no man, except for maybe the pyro. He is capable of lifting and effortlessly carrying around his iconic minigun, aka Sasha, which weighs around roughly 330 pounds. The Heavy is the only mercenary capable of moving around with this kind of a weapon. Heavy can fight hordes of enemy mercenaries or robots in MVM with his bare hands and weapons, can go toe-to-toe with Saxton Hale, somewhat roughly around in strength, and can even beat the classic Heavy under the influence or in power of Australia, which essentially makes the classic Heavy somewhat immortal and can enhance him physically in strength. Heavy was also able to suplex a Siberian grizzly bear 2 to 3 times the size of an average one. Without his arsenal, Heavy lands at around higher or at least somewhat around city block level. When it comes to Overwatch, it's hard to stand out amongst a lot of members, but this guy stands out in a very big way. Maugu is a top-notch mercenary who has a passion for being involved in chaos and also being a stunt double in Disney movies. Maugu is a natural warrior learning from his early life under the Deep Sea Raiders. Maugu, unlike Heavy, can carry 2 miniguns, which roughly weigh 140 or 150 pounds each, and can even run in a short burst while carrying them. Maugu has fought in many battles with the Sea Raiders and has been able to fight on multiple Null Troopers on certain occasions. When Maugu uses his charge ability, he is unstoppable and can shake heavy hitters like Reinhardt and Winston. Maugu was also able to fight Doomfist to a standstill, who was able to hold his own against Winston as well, and can topple a skyscraper theoretically. All in all, Maugu, without his arsenal, scales at around higher than city building level to even city block level potentially. When finding out who is stronger between Heavy and Maugu in terms of physical strength, this is a very close situation. They both have experience fighting multiple enemies and even some of the strongest characters in their own respective games. They also are pretty similar in lifting hard objects or characters. Usually, if you've watched my previous videos, this is kind of the point where I point out who has the better feats of strength to find out who is more powerful. However, from what it seems like, I feel that both characters are pretty much equal when it comes to strength. Now, technically, Heavy does have a bit more feats, considering that he can suplex an oversized grizzly bear and can stand up to Saxton Hale. But you have to understand, Maugu can also fight characters that, like Doomfist. Now, obviously, I know for a fact that Saxton Hale is way stronger than Doomfist, but Heavy did not necessarily fight him in a 1v1 situation. So, with that in mind, I think it's safe to say that they are pretty equal when it comes to power and strength, physically. Heavy is a man who obsesses over his minigun. He loves it so much that he literally named it Sasha, and if you even think about touching it, he will find you and mow you down. The minigun acts as Heavy's primary form of attack, and it is a devastating weapon of destruction. But surprisingly enough, it's not the only weapon he has. Thanks to Saxton Hale, the owner of Manco, Heavy has access to many variations in different weapons, such as the Tomislav for long range, the Natasha to slow down fast and pesky scouts, the Brass Beast for damage output, the Family Business, which is a variation of his shotgun, the Sandwich for healing, gloves are running for mobility, his own fists, and etc. Heavy has a wide variety of weapons which can go completely in his favor and can change his playstyle completely, which gives him so many advantages in a long range situation, or even close range for that matter. Maugu is a man who also appreciates heavy firepower. His two miniguns, known as Cha-Cha and Gunny, do two different things. One of them is used to set a target on fire, the other slows the target somewhat and can deal a bit more damage when the target is on fire. Maugu's guns are his bread and butter, which he uses to take out a lot of his opponents. He also can gain overshield from one of his abilities, and also has another ability that allows him to charge on an enemy head-on to crush them underneath. On top of that, he has an ultimate which is used as a cage, which he refers to as cage match, which keeps targets in a certain area and prevents them from escaping. With the combination of his abilities and miniguns, he relies solely on close combat and forces opponents into that playstyle with his ability and primary weapon. Despite having great abilities that complement Maugu's playstyle, Heavy does have a greater variety of weapons and has different ways of fighting Maugu. For example, Heavy can use the Tomislav to completely counter Maugu's playstyle by fighting him from long range. He also has an item that can heal himself, 2 shotgun variations, and even has access to greater weapons as shown in the TF2 comics. Saxton Hale, the provider of Heavy's weapons, even gained access to a weapon that could literally blow up the moon by simply just pressing a button and not even having to do anything. So to the biggest extreme, Heavy could potentially not even have to confront Maugu, but knowing Heavy, he would definitely not do that because he is not a person to know him to be a coward. Still, Heavy's arsenal has a great variety and gives him way more advantages than it does against Maugu, making him the winner of this situation. Heavy is a big man, and even though the old saying goes, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, this is not the case. As already mentioned, Heavy was capable of fighting and beating an oversized grizzly bear, multiple hordes of robot mercenaries, and can even endure getting punched by Saxton Hale in-game. Saxton Hale is strong enough to physically beat a Yeti that all of the 9 TF2 mercenaries struggle to beat and can casually break through concrete and buildings. Rayman himself didn't even use his robot army to take over Manco from Saxton, but instead forced him to lose to his daughter in a fight based on Saxton's own conditions. This would easily put Heavy at around, once again, city block level. Of course, when it comes to Maugu, the same saying could be said and applied. Maugu is literally unstoppable with his charge ability and can survive hits and even topple characters like Reinhardt, Doomfist, and Winston. Maugu can also fight multiple hordes of Null Troopers all at once, and has fought many battles before that. Once again, Maugu did fight Doomfist to a standstill, who could take down an entire building. So, once again, I could use the Saxton Hale versus Doomfist debate to say that Heavy is more durable than Maugu, but again, these characters share a lot of feats of both strength and durability, which are very similar. And technically, surviving a hit from Saxton Hale is obviously a lot different from Doomfist, but I think realistically Maugu could at least survive 1 or 2 hits from him as well. So once again, this is pretty much a tie. Yeah, I don't really think much needs to be said for this situation, but let's briefly go over it because it is important. So yes, Heavy and Maugu are not known for being very fast characters. For Heavy, though, with the gloves of running and weapon variations, Heavy can match the Pyro and roughly around the Scout's level of speed. Also, you have to remember, Heavy does carry a 330-pound gun with him most of the time, so I think it's safe to say that his speed can range from average to superhuman. For Maugu, it's pretty much the same story. When he uses his charge ability while carrying his two guns, which also weigh around the same weight that Heavy uses, not to mention Maugu can also match Genji and possibly Tracer at their regular speed. So yes, it's also safe to say that Maugu is at around somewhat superhuman speed, which essentially, once again, makes this a tie. When it comes to intelligence, Heavy may seem like a dimwit, but he's actually really smart. He has a PhD in Russian literature and has a lot of experience using many different weapons. He is definitely above average intelligence when it comes to the bottom line. Maugu is also smart considering that he has a lot of combat experience and also has experience using different weapons. He can also make up plans on the fly by improvising. Maugu is also considered above average in terms of intelligence, so overall, this is once again another tie. Alright, so in conclusion, I honestly really like this debate because both characters are for the most part pretty equal in terms of strength, durability, speed, and intelligence. Once again, I could obviously use the Saxon Hail versus any Overwatch character to automatically make him the winner, but Maugu could also share some of those feats when it comes to this debate. Also, I could just also use the MVM power-ups that are used in that mode, which would just make Heavy insanely broken, but that would automatically just make Heavy once again the winner of this debate. When I think push comes to shove though, the one category that Heavy has an advantage in, as I've already mentioned, is his arsenal. Heavy does have a bigger variety of weapons both in game and in the comic that Maugu's pales in comparison to the Heavy. Remember, Saxon Hail did gain access to a weapon that could blow up the moon. Heavy could realistically also gain access to a weapon like that, but I think it would be slimmed down a bit more. But the point is, it would be a weapon of great firepower that would easily outclass anything Maugu has, on top of having a huge arsenal. If it wasn't for the fact that this debate would pretty much be a tie without using feats from MVM or the Saxon Hail argument. So overall, Heavy only wins slightly because of the size of his arsenal, and surprisingly not because of the size of his or Maugu's body. I just wanted to say thanks a lot for watching, guys. I had probably the most fun I've had ever making one of these debate videos because I just really like both of these characters. And I will tell you right now, it was really not easy for me to find a lot of feats for these guys, but I was able to do some soul searching, and I think when it came down to the conclusion, I kind of was happy with it because honestly, I think it really just was one factor that made one character win over the other, and that's kind of what I liked about it. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
You invincible. Your war cost so many lives. I know you think that's a tragedy, but you're wrong.